Hello, this is Sean from Time and Talk. So I wanted to make a video about this watch, which is the Phylida, I assume that's how you pronounce it, Tintin mechanical chrono. Obviously it's heavily based upon the Speedmaster and a particular iteration of the Speedmaster which became known as the Tintin. I've read a little bit about it, and essentially what it seems is that Omega wanted to make a Tintin inspired watch, and apparently they even went so far as to put a cartoon from Tintin onto the dial, and there's apparently a prototype of that. However, there was some sort of to do with Hergé's estate, who was the guy who wrote Tintin, and that was denied. So apparently they had a set of dials with the red and white checkerboard on it, which I'll show you a picture from the Tintin comic. It was based upon the rocket in Explorers on the Moon, a Tintin comic. And so they released this, and that became the Tintin. This is an homage to that particular watch. And I mean, it just shows you really that this watch is very, very affordable. So the Speedmaster, the bog standard Speedmaster, is about 4,000. I'm not exactly sure how much this iteration of the Omega Speedmaster is, but I would imagine very, very expensive. The Snoopy, for example, is, last time I saw one for sale, it was 30,000, whereas this is £140.
Thundering typhoons.
I think you can buy it on AliExpress and that kind of shop, but it's very, very, very affordable. It's got a mechanical movement in it, hand winding movement, as you would expect from a Speedmaster. They do make quartz versions as well. These are even more affordable than that. It's got a sapphire crystal. It's made out of stainless steel, and I'll put the dimensions up on the screen. But the lug width is 20 millimeters, as you would expect from a Speedmaster. The diameter is 42 millimeters. The thickness is 14 millimeters, and the lug to lug is 49 millimeters. It's got the Seagull ST 1902 hand wind mechanical movement in it, and very, very, very cool for £140. And it is an homage, obviously, to a Speedmaster, but you are getting something that feels, I guess, like a Speedmaster. And I'll run through that in a little bit in terms of what my thoughts are about it and things like that. So it's got the checkerboard dial, as the Tintin has. And if you look at the bracelet actually is quite good quality, to be honest. It's pretty hard wearing. It looks like a solid block of steel. The clasp it doesn't feel really, really cheap, and looks like it'd do a job for you. Strangely enough, it's got a diving extension on it, which is quite interesting. The website says that this is 70 meters water resistant. It doesn't have a screw down crown, so I wouldn't by any means swim with this, but it has got a diver's extension, which doesn't really make any sense. But the bracelet, to be honest, looks good quality to me, and you could mistake it at a pace for the Speedmaster, the Omega Speedmaster bracelet. So then you look at the movement. As I said, it's the ST 1902. I'll just give you a bit of history of that. Basically, in the 60s, there were three main brands who made chronograph movements. So that was Valjoux, Lemania, and a company called Venus. And they were mainly Swiss. And the Chinese basically wanted to not be as reliant on these companies anymore, so they decided to develop their own. But what they did was buy the machinery and the designs of Venus, the company, and then they eventually developed that into the ST05 and marketed it as Seagull internationally. and then that's why the brand now has the name Seagull. That essentially went on to become the ST19, which is basically a Venus movement, but developed in China. It's a very, very affordable movement, but you know, you've got Lemania, Valdu, Venus, and it's a proper mechanical movement, which is fantastic at this price point, and it's assembled in China, so you're getting a movement which is, you know, really, really affordable. So the question is this watch any good? And I think just a quick note on Homage watches. Homage watches are really, really big on YouTube, and people really, really love them. And you know, they get a lot of views because people like the watches, they like the designs. An Homage watch is a watch that is trying to look like a famous watch, and it's made more cheaply by a different company, essentially. And really, in terms of my idea about why I got into watches, I'm not a huge fan of the idea of Homage watches. I like to think that the watches I buy have some level of authenticity, and that they have this history to them that's more than just the watch itself, that's more than just the materials that it's made from, that's more than just the piece itself. So part of me doesn't like the idea of Homage watches. I completely get the idea that, you know, not everyone wants to spend so much on a watch, and why do we pay so much for a watch when you can get such an affordable, good quality watch for a good price? But despite those misgivings about Homage watches, every time I actually have one in my hands, I'm really, really impressed by the quality of it. I mean, this is a solid watch. It's got a mechanical movement in it. It's got history to it. The movement, not the brand as such, and it just feels like a lot more expensive than it is. So I can't really fault it, despite not thinking Homage watches are really for me in general. Every time I've felt one, I've been really, really impressed by it. For example, the Parnis Daytona, I bought that because I liked it so much. So I can't really fault this watch for the price. It feels excellent quality. It's got an awesome movement in it. It'd be a fantastic introduction to mechanical movements. It's got sapphire crystal. The movement, when you feel it in action, does not feel anywhere near the quality that my Omega, first Omega in space does. The buttons feel a little bit slack, and the movement doesn't feel as solid, if you like, as the Omega movement. But you wouldn't expect it to, because the Omega cost 30 times the price. And, you know, you can't really complain about that, to be honest. So those are my thoughts on this watch and about Homage watches in general. Hit me in the comments and tell me what you think. Like I said, it's just my opinion, and I'm not slagging off on Homage watches. In general, I would say they're not my favorite genre of watches, but like I said, I completely appreciate the quality of this watch and what it brings to the table. If you see, I'm just comparing it side by side with my first Omega in space, you know, is the Omega 30 times the watch that this one is? Almost certainly not. Is it higher quality? Probably. But then again, you would expect it to be. Is this a nice looking watch? The Phylida or Phylida? Completely. I would definitely wear it. If you see it on my wrist, it looks huge in these pictures, which is kind of, it isn't. It actually wears pretty well. And what I would say is, if you look at the lug to lug, it does look bigger than I would imagine it to for the lug to lug measurement. So it's about 49, just less than 49. It's bigger than the first Omega in space, but in terms of dimensions, it is anyway. But this might be a bit big if you've got a really small wrist. But to be honest, I've got a 6¼ inch wrist, and it wears quite well. So yeah, so those are my thoughts on this watch. Tell me what you think in the comments. If you like my video, please subscribe. And thanks very much for watching. Bye bye.